My name is Nora Whitman, and I am 31 years old. On paper, I'm the executor of my father's estate. In reality, I'm the daughter he trained like a blade and then left to cut through the mess he made. Daniel Keene's office smells like polished wood and old leather, like history that refuses to apologize. He sits behind a mahogany desk, hands folded, eyes kind, which somehow makes the next part worse. The folder in front of me is thick enough to be a doorstop. When I open it, I feel something shift, like a building realigning after an earthquake. Your father was meticulous, Daniel says, as if careful is the same as kind. The transfers spanned 7 years, wire after wire. The numbers bloom on the page like little betrayals. $4,000 monthly to my brother Miles for his startup. Quarterly payments of $15,000 to my sister, Camila, to support her art. Property deeds, 1 condo titled to Miles, a mortgage payoff for Camila. It's an entire life built on a pipeline I never saw, never felt, never got to drink from. Inside my head, the real plays. The double shifts, the third job I didn't admit to anyone, the radiator in my studio that worked when the moon was in the exact right mood. Every time I asked Dad for help, he told me how struggle carves character. I didn't know he'd outsourced the chiseling when it came to the others. Did they know? I ask. My voice is steady, like it's someone else's. Daniel hesitates, then nods. Yes. Something clicks into place. The designer coats at budget family dinners. The kind eyes that felt like pity I couldn't quite name. The way they praised my resilience like it was a party trick. There's a letter, Daniel says, sliding a cream envelope toward me. He wanted you to read it after seeing the financials. My name on the front in my father's script. Nora. The first line. By now you know, and you're angry. Good. You were always the strong one. I needed you to stay that way. I read the rest, and the words taste metallic. He funded them because they were fragile and wouldn't survive otherwise. He withheld from me because I was capable and self-sufficient. He trusted me to do what's right for the family with the remaining $340,000 in liquid accounts. He calls it faith. It feels like a dare. When I look up, Daniel's watching my face like it's a weather report. As executor, you have full discretion, Nora. The will defers to your judgment. Outside his window, my Honda sits sunburned beside a row of German sedans. Perspective. My phone buzzes. A text from Caleb. Hey, I'm outside if you want to ride, or quiet, or both. Another ping. Instagram. Jenna, his ex, posts a black and white quote card. Grace and grief is a family's finest hour. People who can afford grace always recommend it. I tuck the letter back into the envelope and slide it across the desk. They're scheduled tomorrow, I ask. 30 minutes apart, Daniel says. They'll be expecting the arrangements to continue. Arrangements. I stare at the stack of paper, years of my father talking out of both sides of his mouth, and something inside me stops trying to be reasonable. I'll need 3 copies of everything, I say. Every transfer, every deed, the letter. Daniel's eyebrows climb. You're sure? They're about to ask me for money, I say. They should see the cost. He nods, buzzes his assistant. I close the folder and realize my hands are shaking. Not from rage, but from a strange, clean feeling. Clarity weighs less than confusion. Before you go, Daniel says, there's the matter of the house. My father's house. The one where Sunday dinners were staged like low-budget theater. Where Miles rehearsed ambition and Camilla rehearsed genius. And I learned to do CPR on the living room floor when Dad's heart forgot the script. It's not liquid, Daniel adds carefully, but you control disposition. I remember carrying that house on my back in smaller forms. The hospital bill gap, $15,000, paid from the college fund I had for myself, and pretended I didn't miss. The night I slept in my car, because rent outran me after Dad's physical therapy copays, slipped from covered to surprise. The radiator that worked only on Tuesdays. The smell of my own hair when it burned in the candlelight because the power was off and pride wouldn't let me ask for a loan. I'll deal with the house after, I say. First, they see the numbers. Then we talk about what family really means. In the hallway, Caleb is indeed waiting, leaning against the wall like a question he promises not to ask. He takes one look at my face, opens his arms, and I fold into him for exactly 3 breaths. He smells like laundry soap and something green. What do you need, he asks. A long night and a printer, I say, and no one telling me to be gracious. Caleb nods. I'll make dinner, you plan. At my studio, the radiator coughs as if on cue. We cook pasta in the good pan I use for interviews and birthdays. He tries to make me laugh. I try not to mistake comfort for safety. On the coffee table, I build a fortress of evidence. Spreadsheets, highlighted notes, sticky tabs. I sketch out contingencies the way other people sketch out vacations. "Can I drive you tomorrow?" Caleb asks later, careful like a person disarming a bomb. "I need to walk in alone," I say, "but call me after." He kisses my forehead. I'll be waiting. When he leaves, midnight is a hard edge. I sit cross-legged on the floor with my father's letter under a paperweight. Strong one. The phrase bristles. It has always meant you'll carry it. I'll call it love. I fish out an old journal from a box labeled college, acceptance letters I couldn't afford, scholarship applications I filed from a work break room. On the last page, a list of people to thank when I finally graduate. My father's name sits at the top like a theory that never worked in the lab. I try to sleep and fail, then try again and fail better. At 3 a.m., I write a script for myself. What to say when Camilla's eyes fill, when Miles deflects, when they ask me to keep the pipeline running like grief should be self-funding. I draft terms. Reimbursement of the $23,000 I paid to patch Dad's mortality, a $127,000 emergency trust requiring unanimous consent, so real crisis has to be obvious enough to make us agree. The remainder split 3 ways, because fairness isn't a retroactive tax, it's the future done right. And conditions. Not cruelty, clarity. If they want to share, they sign a structure that simulates consequences, the kind life threw at me, and no one caught. At dawn, color sneaks through the blinds, and I've learned a thing sunlight can't bleach out. I won't be my father's idea of right. I'll be mine. I shower, pull on the only blazer I own that can pass for authority, and tuck the copies into a bag so heavy it feels like an inheritance you can physically measure. On my way out, I pass the mirror and almost don't recognize the woman looking back. It's not the blazer, it's the posture. The absence of apology spreads across my shoulders like wings I forgot I had. Down on the street, vendors set up, a bus exhales, the city becomes possible again. My phone chimes, a message from Jenna, of all people. "Thinking of you all today. Families are so delicate after a loss. Be gentle." I type, erase, type, erase. I settle on nothing. The strongest statement is sometimes the one you don't deliver to the wrong audience. Outside Keenan Associates, I catch my reflection in the brass letters on the door. Nora Whitman, 31. Executor. Daughter. Not a synonym for doormat. I square my shoulders and reach for the handle. Time to translate strong into fair, and fair into something that lasts longer than flowers on a grave. Daniel's assistant sets 3 thick folders on the polished table, their edges perfectly squared like little coffins for my father's secrets. I sit at the head. The leather chair sighs in a way that makes me want to stand, but I don't. The clock ticks like it has an opinion. Camilla arrives first. Camel coat, hair twisted into one of those effortless knots that takes 20 minutes in a mirror. She hugs me, perfume like a garden behind a locked gate. "You look thin," she murmurs, the compliment disguised as concern. Miles slips in 5 minutes later, breathless from nothing. New watch, same excuses. He keeps glancing at the door like Dad might walk through it and fix the lighting for him. Daniel closes the door. "Thank you for coming. Before we discuss the estate broadly, Nora has asked to begin with some disclosures." I slide the folders across. Full records, I say, last 7 years. Camilla flips, reads 2 lines, and goes still. Miles's eyes move faster, like more speed might turn numbers into mercy. The room shrinks around their silence until I can hear the air conditioning hum. Miles clears his throat. "Dad was helping us. I knew he liked speeches about bootstrap virtue," I say. "I didn't know the boots were designer and the straps came pre-pulled." Camilla's voice trembles. This looks bad. On paper it looks accurate," I say, soft. "That's the problem." I keep my tone level. I promised myself that. Rage is a flare. Bright, brief, too easy to blame. Clarity is a slow burn. I want them to feel the heat without giving them smoke to hide behind. Daniel interlaces his fingers. Nora is the executor. The will grants her full discretion over liquid assets, approximately $340,000. She asked me to confirm that for the record. Miles's jaw works. "So you can cut us off?" I can do what's right for the family, I say, and watch Camilla flinch at the phrase my father loved like a prayer. I open my copy of the folder, rest my hand on the page with the letter, and read just enough to salt the wound without turning it into theater. You were always the strong one. I needed you sharp. I let the words sit in the center of the table between us like a centerpiece we didn't order. Camilla's eyes gloss. Nora, I didn't know the details. You knew enough to call me amazing when I covered Dad's surgery gap, I say. 15,000. You knew enough to post Aspen photos the week I slept in my car. Miles looks at the carpet. We thought you didn't need help. That belief, I say, is the most expensive thing anyone has ever bought for you. I take out a single sheet, my plan typed in clean black ink. Here's what happens next, I say. First, reimbursement to me for 15,000 in the surgery gap and 8,000 in related costs, total 23,000, paid today from liquid accounts. That's not charity, that's a receipt. Miles opens his mouth. I raise a finger. Second, 127,000 goes into a family emergency trust managed by Daniel. Rules are simple. Unanimous consent, medical or genuine crisis only. No residencies, no pretend startups. If it's real, all three of us will know. Camilla's lips part. Unanimous? We barely agree on pizza. Good, I say. It means if the trust ever opens, things are serious enough to pierce our pettiness. I slide the last page forward. Third, the remainder splits 3 ways, equal shares. Because fairness should have been the baseline, not the twist. Miles blinks. You're giving us money? I'm offering a future where accountability pays better than denial, I say. But equal doesn't mean identical. Your shares come with conditions that reflect the 7-year gap between your lives and reality. The clock continues its small disapproval. Conditions, Camilla repeats, wary. You want your share, I say. You sign repayment agreements to me that acknowledge past support and convert it into time, long, boring, monthly time. Miles, $1,000 a month until your ledger balances against what Dad funneled. Camilla, $2,000 a month, not because I like you less, but because your mortgage payoff was larger and you have a stable roof that costs you pride, not cash. Miles exhales a tiny laugh that isn't a laugh. That'll take years. Yes, I say. That's what growth takes when it's not subsidized. Camilla swallows. And if we miss payments? The agreements include a reversion clause, I say. If you default, collateral transfers. For you, Camilla, a lien against the house Dad cleared. For you, Miles, against the condo Dad bought. I'm not interested in evictions. I'm interested in consequences strong enough to keep you honest. You can't be serious, Miles says, but his voice lacks the backbone he rents for occasions. I am, I say. I've been serious longer than either of you has been awake. A beat. The blinds cast orderly stripes across the table. Light, shadow, light. My phone buzzes silently in my bag. Caleb, right on time. I don't look. Daniel clears his throat with the gravitas of a gavel. Legally, this is within Nora's discretion. The trust protects all parties. The repayment agreements formalize what, frankly, should have been recognized years ago. I turn to the window, the city blinking, like it just remembered how to be alive. There's one more thing, I say, and face them again. Dad's house. Camilla stiffens. What about it? I'm selling it, I say. Proceeds seed an education fund for future grandchildren. Ours, if we have them. Real education, not the kind that requires choosing between textbooks and heat. Dad would hate that, Miles mutters, then looks startled at himself. Then we're on the right track, I say. Camilla twists the cap on her pen until it squeaks. Nora, please, my kids will live where they live now, I say. Your payment plan is structured so the house stays yours if you honor it. That's mercy with math. Silence deepens. Somewhere in the building a copier starts and stops like a sputtered engine. Camilla's voice drops. Are you angry with us? I think of the cemetery and the wind and the letter turning to confetti in my hands. I'm finished being angry for free, I say. I'm billing it into boundaries. Miles closes his folder with the careful politeness people reserve for dangerous animals. How long do we have to decide? 48 hours, I say. At the 49th, your equal shares roll into the emergency trust. We'll still be family. We'll just be family that keeps receipts. Camilla presses her lips together. You're so cold right now. I meet her eyes. No, I'm room temperature for the first time in my life. You got used to me running a fever for everyone. Daniel stands, the cue that the scene is over. I'll email the agreements in an hour. If you choose to proceed, we'll sign Monday morning. We file toward the door. Miles lingers, trying on sincerity. Nora, we love you. I hope so, I say. You're about to find out whether you know how. In the hallway, my phone lights. Caleb, here if you want words, also here if you don't. I text back later. It went how it had to. As I step into the late morning, the sun hits me square, honest, and uncurated. A notification pings from Jenna, a story with a caption, "True strength is gentle." I let it slide off. True strength is specific. Mine comes with line items, not lace. I take a breath that reaches places inside me I'd boarded up and start walking. 48 hours sounds like a cliff. It's actually a bridge. I don't go home right away. The folders are still in my car, the envelope with Dad's handwriting tucked into the visor where I can't decide whether to keep it or burn it. Instead, I drive to Evergreen Cemetery, the place where he's temporarily resting, though the word feels like a lie. The air smells like damp grass and cut stems. Morning light turns the marble rows into broken piano keys. I sit down in front of the marker, just his name on a laminated tag until the stone arrives. "You built a system even death can't shut down," I tell him, "but I'm closing it anyway." The wind doesn't answer. Of course it doesn't. It just moves through my hair like a shrug. For a while, I talk, quietly, about things he'll never fix. About nights spent calculating debt in grocery aisles. About Caleb bringing soup when I couldn't afford medicine. About pretending I was fine because that's what strong daughters do. It's not catharsis. It's record keeping. When I finally drive away, the digital clock on the dash reads hour 3, 45 to go. At hour 47, my phone rings. Miles. The sound alone is a confession. "I can't write you a check for $336,000, he blurts. But I looked through my accounts, and God, Nora, I get it now. Get what? I ask, voice flat. That I was pretending. Calling it entrepreneurship. Dad paid the rent, the utilities, everything. I thought I was building something. I wasn't even living on my own money. He exhales a laugh that sounds like crying. "I want to sign the condo over to you. It's worth $400,000. Sell it, take what I owe, keep the rest." My grip on the phone tightens. The part of me that still sleeps light, that remembers car seat nights, wants to say yes. But the stronger part, the one he never built, knows better. "Keep the condo," I tell him. "You'll pay me $1,000 a month until the debt's real and clean." "That'll take decades." "Then it'll take decades. You'll have time to practice adulthood." He's quiet for a long time. "You really mean that?" "I do. Miss a single payment, the deed reverts. Those are the terms." When we hang up, I drop the phone onto the passenger seat and stare at it like it might explode. I don't feel vindicated, just hollow. Justice is a diet with no sugar. Back in my apartment, Caleb's waiting with takeout boxes and 2 beers sweating on the counter. He looks up when I come in. "You did it?" "Half of it," I say. "Miles signed on, sort of." He hands me a bottle. "That's something." We eat on the couch in silence. The radiator groans. He traces my wrist with his thumb like he's memorizing a pulse he's afraid might vanish. "You look somewhere else," he says. "I am," I answer. 48 hours isn't much time to rewrite 7 years. He hesitates. "You know, you don't have to do this alone. You can let me in." "Then it wouldn't be mine," I say, "and this part has to be." The hurt flashes across his face before he hides it. "Okay, but when this is over, promise me you'll rest. Not just collapse. Rest." I nod, not meaning it yet. At hour 48, my phone buzzes again. Camilla's name. For a second, I think she'll argue, but her voice cracks through the line before I can brace. "I can't give up my house," she says. "The kids? This is their school, their friends. Please don't make me choose between stability and atonement." I stare out the window at the streetlight blinking through thin rain. "Your monthly payment's $3,200 for taxes and insurance," I say. "The mortgage is gone. You'll pay me $2,000 a month, same reversion clause." She gasps, "$2,000? Nora, It's half what you owe, half the time Miles will take. You can do it." Long silence, then a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I'm tired of being the lesson and never the learner," I say. "And because your kids deserve to see what responsibility looks like." She starts to cry. I let her. "You have until Monday," I add. "Daniel has the papers ready." "I'll sign," she manages. "I don't want to, but I will." When the call ends, I set the phone down carefully, like it's fragile. The clock reads 11:59 p.m. Monday morning, the sky is the color of ash. Daniel's office smells like printer toner and inevitability. Miles and Camilla sit across from me. No designer coats today, just exhaustion. Their pens scratch paper. Agreements become real. When it's over, Daniel passes me 3 checks. $23,000 reimbursement, $63,333, My share of the remainder. $127,000 to the emergency trust he'll manage. Camilla studies me. What are you going to do with it? I'm going back to school, I say. Full-time. No night shifts. No pretending exhaustion is strength. Miles nods, subdued. That's good. And after that, I add, I'm going to live like life's allowed to be kind. They both stare. I smile, not cruelly, just honestly. Don't worry, I'll keep receipts. Outside, Caleb waits by the car. He looks at the envelope of checks, then at me. How'd it go? They signed. He exhales, relieved. So it's over? No, I say, sliding into the seat. It's finally starting. The first real morning after the signatures feels unreal. Like I've stepped off a treadmill I didn't know was still running. The silence in my apartment hums. Even the radiator seems cautious, testing what peace sounds like. Caleb shows up with coffee and a small smile that tries to read the temperature. How's freedom? He asks. Loud, I say, and expensive. He laughs, unsure if it's safe to. The checks lie on the kitchen counter, stacked like proof that belief can be balanced. I haven't deposited them yet. I keep glancing at the envelope, waiting for guilt to bloom. It doesn't. Only relief that feels too quiet to trust. You don't have to go back to work today, Caleb says. I do. Habit doesn't retire overnight. By noon, I'm at the hospital, fluorescent lights flickering as if they miss my exhaustion. I'm charting vitals when my phone buzzes. Miles. He sends a photo, a new job offer, tech support at some downtown firm. Started today. First paycheck. First payment. You'll get it Friday. It shouldn't move me, but it does. A tiny practical redemption. Then another message. Camila. A gallery near my kids' school hired me part-time. Payment will come next week. Thank you for not taking the house. I stare at her text longer than I should. Mercy feels strange in my hands, like an object I'm not sure I can carry without dropping. That weekend, Caleb suggests dinner out. No takeout, no coupons, a real restaurant. I hesitate. We should save, he interrupts gently. You've been saving your whole life. Let someone treat you. At the restaurant, the menus don't have prices in bold. I order what I want anyway. Midway through, Caleb reaches across the table. You know, you could move in with me now. Combine rent, share expenses. I freeze. It's meant kindly, but the word combine hits like a bruise. You think I want to trade one dependency for another? His hand withdraws. That's not what I meant. I know, I whisper, but it's what it feels like. We finish dinner in polite silence. Outside, he kisses my cheek and says, You don't always have to carry the whole story alone. I do until I trust the ending, I answer. Later that night, a notification slides across my phone. Jenna Rhodes, Caleb's ex, has posted a reel. Her standing on a pier, wind in her perfect hair, captioned, True power is softness. The timing feels deliberate. I close the app. Power, I decide, can be quiet without being soft. Monday. Daniel calls to confirm the trust account is active. The education fund from the house sale will close next week, he adds. Buyers offered over asking. I picture the old house, Dad's trophies, the squeaky stairs, the smell of cigar smoke that clung even after years of open windows. Selling it feels like deleting a lie. When I hang up, I walk outside and breathe the cool air. The city moves on schedule, indifferent to my family's moral accounting. I like that about it. I take the checks to the bank, each slip of paper a small correction. The teller congratulates me on the deposit. New beginnings, she chirps. I smile. No, continuations. Finally the kind that go forward. That night, Caleb drops by again. He leans on the doorframe, uncertainty softening his eyes. Still mad at me? I wasn't mad, I say. Just not ready. He nods. Then maybe we start smaller. Dinner here. No conversations about merging lives. I let him in. We cook in silence, shoulder to shoulder. It feels almost domestic, except I don't flinch when he reaches past me for salt. That's new. Over dinner, he asks, Do you ever think your dad was right? That struggle made you strong? I look down at my plate. No, struggle didn't make me strong. Surviving him did. We eat the rest of the meal without needing to fill the air. When he leaves, I stand at the window and watch his taillights disappear. Somewhere between justice and grace, I've started to build a third thing. Choice. 6 months pass before I realize I've started sleeping through the night. No alarms for double shifts. No 3 a.m. panic about rent. I still wake early sometimes out of habit, but now the quiet feels like ownership, not absence. The checks come regularly. Miles's transfers labeled debt repayment number 5, number 6, and so on. Camilla's payments arrive twice a month, neat and punctual, her memos reading, promise kept. I keep them in a separate account I've named Repair Fund, not Revenge, Repair. I finished my degree that winter. Walking across campus, I can almost hear my younger self, 18 and idealistic, applauding from the back of my mind. After the ceremony, I call Caleb. "Guess who finally graduated?" he cheers. "Guess who booked dinner reservations?" At the restaurant, I wear a new blazer that doesn't come from a thrift rack. Caleb raises his glass. "To Nora, who rewrote the narrative." "Half rewritten," I say. "Still working on the sequel." He grins. "What's the sequel about?" Learning what to do when survival stops being the goal. Life shifts in small, almost imperceptible ways. I reduce my hours at the hospital and accept a research assistantship. Steady pay, no exhaustion tax. The trust fund sits untouched except for one moment, a cousin's medical emergency. When I texted Miles and Camilla about releasing funds, both replied within minutes. Both said yes. The transfer went out that same afternoon. Maybe we're not healed, but we're functional. That's a start. One night, Caleb brings up the idea again. "Move in with me. Not because you need to, because you can." This time I don't flinch. I think about it. I need to be sure I'm not doing it to prove something, I admit. "Then wait until it feels like peace, not penance," he says. That's why I love him, because he leaves space for my silence. But silence isn't permanent. 2 weeks later, he invites me to a gallery opening, Camilla's gallery. I hesitate, then go. The room smells like white wine and ambition. Camilla beams when she sees me. "You came! Wouldn't miss it." Her art has changed. Less self-pity, more substance. Miles shows up too, slightly late, tie crooked, girlfriend in tow. It's the first time we've all been together without tension buzzing between us. I turn a corner and see her, Jenna, standing beside Caleb, laughing softly. Of course she's here. She and Camilla share clients. For a moment, old insecurity bites. But then Caleb notices me, crosses the room, and takes my hand without hesitation. The gesture says more than 100 captions ever could. Jenna smiles that polished smile. "Nora, isn't it? I've heard so much." "All good things, I hope." "Mostly." She sips her wine. "You're a very determined woman." "Occupational hazard," I reply. Camilla swoops in, introducing new buyers, breaking the tension. Later, outside under the awning, rain pattering against pavement, Caleb slides his hand into mine. "She's not part of my story anymore," he says. "I know," I answer. "I just needed to hear you say it once." Weeks later, my first research paper is accepted for publication. I forward the news to Miles and Camilla. Miles replies, "Proud of you." Camilla sends 3 exclamation marks and a heart emoji. It's awkward, but genuine. I print the email chain and tack it above my desk, a reminder that progress isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just punctuation where there used to be silence. That night, Caleb finds me sorting old papers. "What's all this?" "Evidence," I say, "that the past can stay filed instead of followed." He laughs. "You and your folders." They help me remember that order can come from chaos. He leans down and kisses my temple. "Maybe that's what you were always building. Order, not obedience." And for the first time in years, I believe him. 1 year after my father's death, the sky over Seattle looks like a clean page. I'm standing in a sea of black gowns, tassels swaying in the breeze, waiting to hear my name. When they call it Nora Whitman, magna cum laude, the applause feels unreal, like someone turned up the volume on a life I almost didn't get to live. From the stage, I scan the crowd. There's Mom, crying happy tears beside her husband. A few rows down, Miles, looking healthier, actually smiling. Camilla beside him, holding up her phone, recording me like she's proud. Caleb stands behind them, clapping until his hands must ache. I didn't expect that to undo me, but it does. When the ceremony ends, we meet on the lawn. Camilla hugs me first, whispering, "Dad should have seen this." "He saw enough," I say. "This part's mine." Miles pulls me into a clumsy hug. "Dinner's on us tonight, non-negotiable." I smirk. "Using your own money, I hope." He laughs. "That's the point." The restaurant glows with soft light, warm wood, and laughter that feels unforced for once. Plates clink, glasses rise. Miles raises his beer. To Nora, who saved herself when no one else would. Camilla adds, and who taught us what strength really means. I lift my glass. To family. Not the one we were born into, but the one we're finally learning to build. For a moment, there's quiet, then laughter, easy and bright. My niece tugs on my sleeve. Aunt Nora, are you rich now? I laugh. Not rich, kiddo, just okay. Camilla's son leans forward. Mom says you worked really hard to get here. She's right, I tell him, and you should work hard too, but not because you have to prove anything, because it helps you grow. Miles chuckles. You sound like Dad now. Except I mean it as advice, not as punishment. Later, Caleb walks me to my car. The night is crisp, the air tasting like rain and possibility. You were incredible up there, he says. Your speech, the way you owned it, you've come so far. I lean against the door. Far from what? From surviving. You're living now. He hesitates. So, when does the future start? The one we keep talking about? I smile. Maybe right now, but this time we build it slow. He nods, understanding. No rush, just real. We stand there for a long time, no words needed. The city hums around us, and for once I don't feel like I'm racing it. Months roll forward, like chapters turning themselves. The education fund grows quietly in Daniel's hands. The trust remains untouched, an insurance policy for humanity. Miles keeps his new job. He sends me screenshots of direct deposits and occasional photos of cheap dinners he cooks with pride. Adulting level, intermediate, he captions one. Camilla's gallery thrives. She sells her first solo collection, Resilience in Color, and donates part of the proceeds to the trust. Her kids draw pictures of Aunt Nora the hero. One evening, I sit with Caleb on my tiny balcony, looking at the skyline. You ever think about forgiving him? He asks gently. I sip my wine. I don't think forgiveness is the point. Understanding is. He built us out of imbalance. I'm just learning to stand evenly. Caleb nods. You think he'd be proud? Probably, I admit, but I don't need him to be anymore. When I finally fall asleep that night, it's dreamless. No ghosts, no letters, no unfinished conversations, just rest, the kind that isn't recovery but reward. And somewhere between midnight and morning, I understand the difference between closure and commencement. Closure ends things. Commencement begins them. I'm finally living in the second half of that sentence. 5 years glide past the way normal years do when they're not packed with crisis. The hospital job turns into a director position. I buy a modest house on a quiet street where the radiator works every day of the week. When people ask how I did it, I just say slowly. Every month the payments arrive, automatic, steady as breathing. I stop checking for them because they're always there. Miles never misses once. Camilla only misses the month her son breaks his arm, and she texts to warn me before the due date. I tell her, family emergencies count as exceptions. Even our new rules have room for grace. The trust fund grows with interest. Daniel sends quarterly reports that look like peace on paper. Then, on an ordinary Saturday morning, I get a call from Miles. It's done, he says. Every cent, all $336,000, paid off. I blink, trying to process it. You're serious? I even calculated the interest you never charged. You should get that too. I laugh. I don't need the interest. You already gave me something better. What's that? You grew up. There's a long pause. I can hear him exhale. Yeah, about time, huh? We talk for an hour. About his job at the nonprofit teaching financial literacy, about his twin daughters who just started high school. He tells me he uses my story in his workshops. I tell them struggle isn't romantic, it's just unpaid labor. But accountability? That's power. After the call, I open my banking app. The account where I kept his repayments has grown to over $420,000 with interest. Without thinking too long, I transfer half to an education fund for his daughters. Not because he earned it back, but because I can. A year later, Camilla calls. Last check's coming this week. I'm driving it over myself. When she arrives, she's alone. Her hair is streaked with gray now, her face softer in ways that look like peace. She hands me an envelope and a letter. I wrote everything down, she says, things I should have said a decade ago. I read it on the porch after she leaves. It's 4 pages long, apologies, confessions, gratitude. I envied you, she writes. Even when you had nothing, you were real. I lived off Dad's illusion and called it love. You lived in the truth and called it survival. At the end, I want my kids to be like you, not like me. When I look up from the letter, Camilla's sitting on the porch steps with 2 glasses of wine. You didn't have to drive 8 hours, I tell her. Yes, I did, she says. It deserves ceremony. We clink glasses, watch the sunset turn the sky a color we can't quite name. You ever think we'll stop measuring ourselves against him? She asks. Maybe. But even if we don't, at least we know we're not using his ruler anymore. We drink, talk about her art students, my work, her kids' college plans. The air between us hums with something unfamiliar, sisterhood that doesn't require suffering. Before she leaves, she hugs me tightly. For what it's worth, she whispers, you were right. Fairness isn't sameness, it's honesty. I smile. And honesty costs installments. She laughs through tears. Paid in full. Later that night, Caleb comes home to find me sitting on the porch, the letter folded on my lap. Long day? He asks. Good day, I say. Debt-free in every way that matters. He sits beside me. So what now? Now, I say, we see what happens when there's nothing left to repay. He wraps an arm around my shoulders. You think the story's over? I shake my head. No, I think it's finally ready for a different genre. We sit in the dark, fireflies drifting through the yard, the air sweet and easy. For the first time, I feel what my father mistook for weakness, calm. Some inherit wealth. Others inherit wounds. I inherited both and turned them into balance. 20 years after my father's death, the land where his house once stood looks nothing like the place I grew up. The 2-story monument to appearances is gone. In its place rises a complex of pale brick buildings with green balconies and laughter spilling out of open windows. The sign out front reads, The Whitman Community Residences, affordable housing for families in transition. Miles, Camilla, and I stand together at the entrance. He's silver-haired now, leaner, quieter in the best way. Camilla wears paint-stained jeans, still an artist, but one who teaches now. Hard to believe this used to be our house, she says. Maybe it still is, I answer, just finally full of life. Miles chuckles. Dad would hate this. Exactly, Camilla says, grinning. That's how I know we did the right thing. Inside, families are unpacking boxes, children chasing each other down the hallways. A woman with tired eyes but a bright smile approaches us. You're the donors? I nod. Anonymous donors. Mostly. She shakes our hands. You should know. You've changed lives here. Some of these people were weeks from homelessness. Her words hit like a weight and a blessing all at once. Miles slips an arm around my shoulders. Our sister knows something about that, he says. I laugh softly. So do we all in different ways. Later that evening, we have dinner in the courtyard. 3 long tables pushed together, filled with spouses, children, and grandchildren. Caleb sits beside me, still my anchor after all these years, now with a few gray strands of his own. Around us, conversation overlaps like music. Camilla's daughter, now a lawyer, stands and raises her glass. I'd like to propose a toast, she says, to Aunt Nora, who taught us that fairness isn't about everyone getting the same thing. It's about everyone getting what they need and being held accountable for it. The entire table echoes, to Aunt Nora. Glasses clink. The sound rings like absolution. I look around at these people. Faces that exist because pain was turned into purpose. Children who know security not as luxury but as right. It's dizzying, humbling, and perfect. Later, after the dinner ends, I walk out alone toward the small park across the street where the moon reflects off the pond. Miles and Camilla join me quietly, the 3 of us falling into an old, wordless rhythm. You ever miss him? Miles asks finally. I consider it. Sometimes I miss the idea of who he could have been, but not the man he was. Camilla nods. I used to think forgiving him meant excusing him. Now I think forgiveness is just refusing to drag his shadow any further. Then we're all forgiven, I say. Even him, maybe, but mostly us. We stand there until the night hums quiet again. Then we walk back toward the building, toward laughter, light, and new families filling rooms where ghosts used to live. The next morning, before flying home, I stop at the cemetery one last time. His granite headstone gleams under the sun. I kneel, lay a single flower on the grass. I kept my promise, I tell him softly. I did what was right for the family, just not in the way you meant. The wind rustles the trees, gentle, almost approving. You tried to make strength a cage, I whisper. I turned it into a door. I stand, brush the dirt from my knees, and look at the horizon. For the first time, there's no weight pulling me backward, only gravity drawing me forward, toward a life defined by choice, not obligation. As I walk away, my phone buzzes, a message from Caleb. Flight on time, can't wait to see you. I smile. Boarding now. Bring flowers to celebrate something that finally ended right. He replies, you mean something that finally began right. And maybe that's the truth, because in the end, survival wasn't the legacy. Becoming better was.